Hey ArcheryTalk, this is Lucas, and today I'm here to offer my final long-term review of the Garmin Xero A1i range-finding bow sight. I first laid eyes on the Garmin Xero at the ATA show this past January, and for me it kind of stole the entire show and it blew me away. Just the technology involved in this sight, and I was super eager to try it out, and unfortunately Garmin invited me out to go hog hunting a couple months later in Texas, and I finally got to put this sight through its paces. What sets the Xero apart from any other bow sight I've tested in the past is obviously the main difference is the rangefinder built right in. Now there are a couple of other rangefinding sights out right now, but Garmin does theirs a little bit differently. And the thing I like most about this sight is that there is zero clutter in the scope itself. Once you come to draw and range this, all you see is a single LED light. Everything else is wide open so you can concentrate and get a clear view of the deer or the hog or whatever you're hunting. And it really offers a picture unlike any other bow sight I've ever tested. When you upgrade to the A1i, the highest level of this sight, what that really offers is different arrow profiles. This sight can handle 10 different arrow profiles. So you can have a 350 grain arrow, and you can have another one set up for maybe 450 grains or a little bit higher for different broadhead weights and everything else. And you can have all those different arrow profiles set up at the push of a button, choose the one you want to go, and once you get them all sighted in, all that information is stored in here forever, and you can just kind of pick your profile when you go out with the arrow you're using, and you're good to go with ranging as far out as you want to really go. One of the things this sight does that I've not seen anywhere else is it judges something as simple as how long the bow vibrates after a shot. So I've got this on the Matthews Tri-X right now, which is a super quiet and dead in the hand bow, and you can tell exactly how long the vibration lasts. It doesn't tell you how much it's vibrating. If this bow is vibrating less or more than another, it just tells you the duration of it. But it's a pretty cool feature, and you can put this on a bunch of different bows and you can find the one that maybe you like the best to take in the field. Another question people have asked me is how long does the shot process take with this sight on there as opposed to a regular sight? And really it's quite similar. It's maybe a second or two longer, but I'm going to take you outside to the range and show you exactly how long that takes. So as I mentioned, it doesn't really take that much more time to get on target, get your range and shoot than it would with just getting on target and shooting with a regular sight. All I do is I come to full draw, I hit my trigger to range at the front, I got my range, my pin's there, and away it goes. It's just like that. It's another second or two. Another cool feature on this sight is if you're in a position where you don't think you have time to range, you can have set kind of individual pins, although they're just LED lights installed. So I've got mine set at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 76 yards, which is as far as my range goes. Just in that way, it's just a quick push of a button, and you can bring up all of those pins in your field of view, and that way you can use it just like a regular 5-pin sight. Now, the two main modes I use on this sight most are the hunting mode and the practice mode, and there's really not much of a difference between them. In the practice mode, what it does, it keeps track of exactly how many times you've used the sight, especially for individual arrow profiles. It's not data that you have to have or anything like that. It's just nice to know, be able to keep track of exactly how many times you've shot your bow. You don't have to write anything down if that's kind of the thing you like to do. It's just a good way to track your progress. Probably the question I get asked the most about this sight is kind of how complicated is it to set up? And it is a little bit more complicated than a regular sight, but once you figure out exactly what you're supposed to do, it becomes quite simple. Basically, there's a little grid that you'll see when you look through the sight. You'll have a single red dot and a bunch of arrows that are pointing to a circle. Ultimately, your goal when you're at full draw every single time is when you look through that peep is to have that dot in that little circle. To get there is where you have to actually make movements to the sights, either left to right or up and down. And you just make small adjustments and go check full draw again and see if you're we call it basically the donut hole in the donut. And you keep checking, making small movements and checking back until that donut hole is in the donut every time when you're at full draw. And ultimately, to me, that's been a great way to improve accuracy for me, because now I know every time I draw back, if my head is not in the right position, the dot and the circle aren't going to be lined up. It has kind of fine-tuned my long-range shooting with a hunting bow. It's just an extra little added bonus for this sight that I like a lot. And once it's locked in, you don't ever have to touch the sight again itself. Everything else is just ranging individual yardages. I have not touched the sight movements at all since we first installed the sight. It's been really rock solid, and it's nice to know if it's off, it's going to be me and my form. And so I can correct that and know I'm going to be accurate long range. And I never have to make any left to right movements even when I'm changing arrows, because once your arrow rest is in the right position and the bow is tuned properly, you don't have to worry about the left to right. It's just the up and down when you're looking at putting different arrow profiles in and ranging all your different yardages. Another thing to think about with the Garmin Xero is the weight. It is definitely a little bit heavier than other sights, and it does add a little bit of mass to your bow. But again, if you're like me and you end up putting a bunch of weight on a stabilizer on the bow anyway, you're not going to notice the extra ounce or two or whatever is going to be added onto this individual sight. You can feel it when you're carrying it around, but when I'm at full draw, it's never anything that's come to that I've worried about, oh, it weighs too much out front. I could just add more weight to my rear stabilizer and I've been good to go. Another concern some people have pointed out with this sight is how is it going to work when the conditions are bad, in the rain, in the dust or anything like that. I have shot this when I went hog hunting with Garmin. It was super dry, dusty conditions. I got dust on the glass in the scope, but it didn't ever impact how I could see or how it ranged. And then just this past weekend, I spent a day up in the tree stand looking for deer in some snowy, cold conditions. I had snow all over the site. I had water droplets on the lens, yet it still had no trouble ranging, and it didn't really affect my field of view at all. So ultimately, I'm pretty confident in how this sight is going to work. The final consideration when it comes to the sight is going to be the price. Garmin put a lot of time and effort and technology into the sight, and that's going to ultimately show once you get to the cash register. The base model of the Garmin Xero A1 is $800. That's already a lot more than any other bow sight you're going to buy out there. But I guess the thing to consider is if you're already buying like a flagship level bow sight, like a $300 or $400 bow sight, you're kind of halfway there, and you're buying a good rangefinder. Again, you're buying a high-level rangefinder at $300 or $400, then you've kind of matched that price already. Now, if you're not the person who's going to spend that much money on a sight or a rangefinder, this is probably not the sight for you anyway. This is really for the people who want the latest and greatest. Now, if you upgrade to the Garmin Xero A1i, now you're talking about a $1,000 price tag, so a $200 bump over the regular A1. The only difference really between those two is arrow profiles. With the regular A1, you've got one arrow profile only. With the A1i, you could hold up to 10 different arrow profiles in there. So I've got 3 in here right now for different weights, to have different broadhead weights on the end or anything else I might want to do. You can hold up to 10. All you got to do is individually range your sights out. And now I've got profiles for 3 different arrows built in here. I can just switch a button and go from arrow to arrow to arrow. And I've got my ranges built in for all of them. It really does make life a lot easier. It's a whole lot easier than having different sight tapes built for different arrows if you're using a traditional bow sight. It is probably beyond the clear sight picture, it's probably my second favorite feature of the Garmin sight. And it's the reason that I would recommend it to anybody who is in the market for something like this. Obviously, no, it's not for every budget, and it's probably not for my budget. But if you can afford something like this, it is well worth investing in. The technology is so cool. It works exactly as you hope it would work. And so there's not much else I can ask for out of a site like that. It does what you want it to do. And the battery, I know some people were worried about that. I've had this in here for 8 months now, and I'm still using the same original battery. It should last about a year. The only thing that really uses up a lot of the battery itself is ranging. Once you're using the range mode, that eats it up quite a bit. But once you're already ranged, you're just basically keeping on an LED light, which is very, very little draw on the battery. But you can keep an extra one with you. Just make sure you buy a lithium battery. That's what they recommend. Those are the ones that'll last you again a year or so. For more information on the Garmin Xero A1 or A1i, head over to Garmin.com.